Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Busy. I hope you enjoyed today's story. And if you do, please subscribe. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Busy. It is episode 501 with Kim Litton. Hi, Kim.
You.
I'm so great, and I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for
So
coming.
happy. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's amazing. I have to tell you guys, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about her, but I'm going to tell you who she is. Kim is a licensed clinical social worker and a certified sex addiction therapist. She's the founder of KL Counseling, a private practice providing both virtual and in-person individual and couples counseling support in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. In Palm Beach, Florida. Kim is also a facilitator of in-person and online women's therapeutic groups at her practice. She is also the co-facilitator of Seeking Self, an inner child workshop. And last but not least, Kim is an author. She just wrote I Do It for Her, a memoir, a little bit of a workbook, and some education there. Thank you so much, Kim, for saying yes, because you guys, I have to tell you, you know how I work. I'm like all about God winks and God, like God shows me the way. And I got up this morning and I said to my husband, before we even got out of bed, right after we prayed, I said, I want to have an author on my show for December that just wrote a book that can be helpful to people out there. And he was like, I don't know. And our mutual friend, I was in Bedner's, grocery store, and I get a text from Sarah Teggy, and she's like, oh my gosh, Elizabeth, you've got to meet my friend Kim. She's an author. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if God doesn't drop things in your lap when you ask him sometimes, it was like amazing.
It is unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy?
God thing. Because my book just came out this week. I mean, it's like just out now. So that's unbelievable because, of course, I've been doing the same thing on my end. Like God, put the people that I'm supposed to meet into my life, put the things that, open the doors of opportunity. What do you want this book for? What did you have me write this book for? Open those doors, Lord, and let me see them as clear as I can. So you just as like divine for me too, believe me.
It's so great. And I did have a chance to read through some of your book, and I think it's so amazing. For one, you're so raw and so honest.
Yes, I am. Yes, that's probably the most the signature I think of the book really is the rawness and just the real authentic rawness of this book, because when you walk through the things that we walk through, and I'm not going to put you in here, I'm just going to say we as women in recovery, right? We struggle with addiction. We have some pretty things, so there have been some pretty things that happen to us as well when we're children. I mean, we go back and it's, things aren't beautiful and shiny, and it's not like, oh, I got clean and sober and everything was fine. No, it doesn't look like that. So I wanted the average woman to be able to see that, what, it doesn't look all shiny. I'm not supposed to be perfect as soon as I get sober, or, I'm walking around with this sack of shame over my shoulder and it's so heavy, but like, okay, I can start shedding some of this. And I think that's you saying it's so raw. That's the number one used comment for that book so far by the people who's read it.
But it's so interesting because you mentioned that word shame. And the reason, I've been doing all this from day one. I mean, my first thing I patented right when I got sober 18 years ago, and you have 20 years, by the way, congratulations. And it was like, sober, not ashamed. I'm sober, not ashamed. I want everybody to know I don't have any shame, even though I'm filled with shame. It was, and my whole mission these days is to get out there and share with other women, like, you don't have to carry shame. And I think that the craziest thing is alcoholics and addicts and people in recovery, we're able to come. We have a book, we've got this big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. We can follow these steps, but so many people carry shame these days. Would you agree with that?
Oh my
Even if they're not addicts?
God. Hmm. I believe even more so if not addicts. We're a shame-based world. We're a shame-based society, and unfortunately, we develop that shame at such an early age, and we carry our family's shame. I'm a big believer in, and I study a lot, the generational trauma. And I believe, we're born into shame and we're raised with shame. I make a comment in my book where my grandmother got mad at my mother when my mother got pregnant with my little brother. That was mom and dad's third child. And my grandmother got mad at mom because she said that was slutty that she got pregnant more than twice. Only should have gotten pregnant, not three. That is almost like it's laughable to me, and grandfather would, if anybody said anything about them being pregnant or anything, oh, just that talk. It's like any kind of sexual talk, any whatsoever, was just shushed in my mother's household. And then in my household, I grew up in a very adverse, mom and dad never kissed. I never saw any kind of anything they did were behind the scenes in shame, in probably a shameful, and it wasn't intimacy, love, connection was not something that was aired and like shown, and I think that we grow up with that shame, just that right there, that message right there of like, we're not supposed to show outwardly our affection to people or our love for people. I mean, that's one of thousands probably that are instilled in us from an early age, but that was one that was instilled in me, and I just wanted to share that piece.
I appreciate that because I do think that there's so many people, I guess I'll even say, because I mean, I definitely tend to gear towards more towards women because I am one, right? I mean, so it's easier for
Like
me.
people for sure.
And I love that these days, I don't want to place blame on our parents, but I don't think that their parents allowed them to speak, which in turn didn't allow us to speak. It just has been this domino effect to where we are. We're approaching. We're 1 month away from a new year,
Mm, yes.
a whole new year in 2025. And I look forward to so much hope for so many reasons. And everybody that knows I'm a huge Trumper, so I'm so excited about that for one. And I'm very excited about that because I think that will be bringing us back a little. My husband always said for the past 4 years, he's like, the pendulum has just gone so far this way, and now it has to even out. And I think it's going to even out, hopefully, with individuals.
Mhm.
It's because
Hope
we
it
all
even.
need. And I think that your book is an amazing resource for anybody, even the person that isn't the addict, because I think, again, these same tools. I have one of my best friends is not an addict, right? And she
You're
comes,
right.
I mean, she came over for Thanksgiving, and everybody at the table was in, pretty much in whatever form, in a halfway house, trying to get there, whatever it was. And she's like, why don't they have something for regular people? And I think when I read your book, I'm like, anybody could read this book that's out there. Yes, going through
So
stuff.
much because I too have a lot of normies, non-addict friends, and people that I've sent, the manuscript to. I mean, again, the book just came out this week, but of course I've sent a lot to my friends, and they were like, gosh, it's a really good book just to read. It's like I was hoping to, and again, I'm a big God person too, so it's like God was holding my hand through it all. There's a lot of depth in this book. just about addiction.
No, and that's what we need to hear. So I want you, if you would, to go back to the beginning of growing up and all of that, because I think so many people will relate. So talk to us about your whole story. I want to hear your whole story.
Okay. My upbringing was a small town in the southwest tip of Virginia called Pennington Gap, Virginia. I'm from the Appalachian Mountains. My
You and JD Vance.
JD Vance. It's true. I mean, I said to somebody, I was like, this is like another hillbilly elegy, I guess, if so to speak. But we were was really in the Appalachian Mountains. His grandmother was born and raised in the Appalachian Mountains, and he would go visit her hometown and was like really there. And my dad was a coal miner, and grandfather hard and bought the coal mines, and then ended up giving the coal mines to my uncles and my dad. But long story short, I grew up in this tiny, tiny small town in the Bible Belt. Everybody knew me. We went to church every single Sunday. Was very involved in church, and mom's involved in the women's club, and dad's involved in the Lions Club, and we all three of us do extracurricular. We were a fantastic looking family on the outside. We really were. And don't get me wrong, we all loved each other very much. But on the inside, my mother was very sick. And again, I think carrying her own shame, being a lonely wife, because my dad worked long hours and he didn't come home. And even when he did come home, he paid attention to us, but not to her. And looking back on that, I have a lot of compassion for her, thinking, gosh, she probably just wanted like a husband and like a partner to come home and like do life with. And it was just kind of like they were both doing in our family, but separately, and almost like each other, which was really, it's really sad for me now to look back on. But nonetheless, I mean, they're still married to this day, and they're hilarious now because they're like older, and now they're like best friends, and like it's funny. Being raised like that, mom had a lot of issues because she as well struggled with migraines, and eventually got her prescribed opiates, and the opiates turned to her doctor shopping and stuff. This is in the eight and the night. Nobody looked at things like mental health or addiction, especially mental health, maybe a little bit addiction. There was, and especially not in my hometown. So struggling, and she just really didn't have support. Thank goodness she had church, but she never told her business to anyone. I mean, that was just so, didn't do that. So the pills were her refuge. And we were brought up with very up and down, hot and cold mother and an avoidant father. Middle child of three. And when I got to middle school and high school, I was finally able to like boys, which meant like everything to me. I was going from like being nobody, little Miss Nobody, an invisible child, very quiet, made great grades, but my sister was the popular one, right? And my brother was the popular one because he was so funny and so sporty, and so he was just so cute and charismatic, and my sister was so cute and charismatic and popular, and I was like a nobody. This is what I made up about it all, right? When boys started noticing me, I was like, it was like amazing. And she wrote, really. I mean, of course, it was the boys who necessarily didn't, who wanted to treat me well. I didn't want anything to do with them. And boys who like made my stomach hurt and made me have anxiety was thrilling, the ones I wanted to be with. So they were all like bad boys, introduced me to, drugs, alcohol, you name it. And first I'd really do that. I would drink, of course, but you know, thing in AA, if you go to the barber shop times you're going to end up getting a haircut. And that's the truth. I mean, if you date this boy and see him every single day and he's smoking pot and drinking and whatever, you're going to get high. You're going to. So, I started being sexually active at a young age, 14, which I think is crazy now. It was back then. I mean, it was just like my friends were like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh my gosh." I think that's insane now. If Oh, my kids are older than that now. But anyway, actually active and started smoking weed and drinking. Basically, that just progressed. That whole three things took away my feelings of discomfort, feeling less than, feeling weird, um, being self conscious. So either I was being sexual or getting high or getting ready to get high or something. And I noticed, those are the things that took away those horrible feelings and the anxiety and depression that comes along with growing up in a tumultuous household. So forward, that just progressed really throughout high school. I graduated high school and went to 7 colleges, 7 years and never came out with a degree because it was always the college or the boy or the this or the that was the problem. It was never me. I did get pregnant in high school as a 16-year-old girl. I hid that pregnancy and very embarrassing and shame. I mean, just talk about shame. I was very ashamed to be pregnant and I hid that pregnancy for 5 months and then I miscarried that baby. That about that in detail. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible situation that happened and but just the shame that went along with I could not just go and tell my mother that I was pregnant and I was in trouble, was mortified. And I truly didn't know. And also the aversion of like just truth telling and stuff. Like there was just not, it wasn't in me. Like I just didn't want to think about it. And I thought if I just don't think about it, that it will go away. I mean, it was just the weirdest time in my life. Way the style and everything as I'm in college and hopping from college to college. Cotton is then introduced to neck of the woods. I mean, the whole world. But in 1996, was introduced to the market. I would say I was a full-blown Oxycontin addict by 1998. Tell you full-blown, I would have sold my kidney for one pill. I would have done anything. It's like you go from I was going from like a party girl one day just that enjoyed partying to I was lying, cheating, stealing from whoever and whatever to get pills. Cotton and cocaine then became my drugs of choice, which were very, very expensive. So I stole a lot of money and I spent a lot of money from my savings. I've found that I had a savings account that mom and dad didn't want me to know about, but once you're 18, and tell me not to take from, they didn't even know I knew about it. Like it was just, so I drained the whole damn thing, within like 8 years of my addiction. And so, but I still, so anyway, just a drug. I was just a junkie. I was a junkie with few consequences. And that's why I was an Oxycontin addict at 19 years old. And I didn't get clean until I was 26 years old because I had very little consequences during those years, but my life was just one big long spiral. Kept getting worse and worse, built the tolerance of the drugs and so on and so forth. I then got clean and sober in 2004. I was 26 years old and I did not want to, I was so relieved to not have to do those things, but I didn't want to look at this whole self-esteem, self-love business. I was like, oh, really just wanted a husband. To me, 26 was old. Now I'm like, oh my God, I was a baby. I should have just, held on, but I didn't. I was like, how do I get a husband? I was looking to meet a boy now to like have kids with and play house and do life with. So that's exactly what I did. And he was looking for the same thing, and we were both clean and sober. I think we were both really doing the best we could at the time with what we had. I mean, we're decently good people. It's just we were just sick kids, and we um met very love addicty. We got married, had our two kids, and during that time, I think his mother had passed away. We had lost our first daughter
Mm.
her too early. And I think things compiled on us that we just weren't emotionally mature enough to handle. I think that he relapsed before I knew about it, but I didn't know that. It makes sense. I think he was hiding it. A long story short, he eventually became physically abusive in front of my 2-year-old and 4-year-old at the time. And I just remember looking up at the kids, honest to God. I was on the floor trying to get up because my kids were screaming and crying. And I was trying to get up, and every time I'd try to stand up, he would push me back down. And I just saw my brother and I and my two kids. I grew up. Even at my mom and dad, please stop fighting, please stop fighting, please, and I just saw that in my kids, and I was like, I can't do this to them. I'd stopped the cycle of addiction, and I was grateful for that. But I was like, God Almighty, I can't raise them like this. So I left. And that's the last time we ever were together as a married couple. It was so hard, so hard. My God, it was so hard because I was a stay at home mom. I had basically gone from my dad taking care of me to my husband taking care of me financially. Never had to worry about anything. We drove very nice cars, very nice home. I mean, his family, I mean, we even flew privately. So, I mean, it was a very nice living that I had around me. And choosing to leave was like a thing that sober Kim, recovery Kim, and that Kim wanted to grow and like really and truly leave, break cycles and really and truly leave things in the past did, the easier, softer way. But it was, I look back on it today and I'm just like, I would have never, my dreams weren't big enough, Elizabeth. That would have been my dream or something, like living wealthy, like so big enough. I mean, I got chills just saying that, like of that now, wealth wise, a small fraction, but I couldn't be happier. I write to thank you notes to God all the time. I'm like, thank you for peace and joy, and those are the two things that I'm so grateful for. But I had to go back to school and get my degrees, and had to start working full time in the industry, in the therapeutic world, so that I could get, the chops, so to speak, to be able to get good jobs and to grow field. And I did, and just one door after another would open for me. This treatment center would ask me to be their clinical director, this treatment, and that kind of grows you to where I was ready to launch into private practice because I really, really, really wanted to be there for my kids, like through anything. Like, if you're having a play today, I want to be there for the play. I don't want to have to like ask HR if I can take off for 1 hour. I mean, like that wasn't me. I was like, I want to be able to schedule this shit, in my schedule. Like I don't ask for permission. So To do that though, I had to work really hard and get into this private I told you a little bit earlier today. Now, being a clinician, I'm really good at. Being a business owner is like, whoa, it's tough. Well, that's really where I'm at today. I've struggled with my own sex and love addiction through that piece of the post-divorce Kim was working 80-hour work weeks, school on Saturday, and when my kids went to their dads, I was all over Tinder, social media, and whatever, hooking up with um, just the most unavailable guys that you could ever imagine, and hooking up with them, telling myself, oh, I just want to hook up while the kids are with their dad, but understanding that smaller piece in me, the Kim who just really wants to be loved, hurting her every time. So I would sleep with these guys, telling myself, oh, I'm doing this to have fun. But once they would leave and they didn't want to be my boyfriend and they didn't give a shit, I was just like devastated. I mean, devastated. Again, logically, were no one I would ever date anyway, age wise or whatever wise. They were just nothing compatible for me, no one compatible, but I wanted them to love me. That was the thing. I wanted them to love me. I didn't even think about me loving them. Like if you loved me, then I'd love you back. Like if you love me, that's all that mattered. I would love you as much as I could love back. I really, really, during this time since the kids I've been going through post divorce, which has now been 13 years, and such a deep dive into that self love thing that I was talking about when I first got clean and sober. Like, I really didn't want to look at that. I didn't want to do the, no dating for a year and all that self into soul searching. I didn't want to do that, but that's where I've been the past 13 years, is doing that soul searching, that I needed to be alone. I needed to be, like I said, I'm still a single mom and I've needed this so much. I've needed to grow and mature as a woman, but also just into like love and self-love. I was even choosing men. They were just choosing me. And then I would go along with it. So yeah, today I'm just really full of gratitude. So glad to be done with this book, because I think this is one of those when I would say, prayers. God, around the holidays it does get lonely. I'm not gonna lie, especially now that my kids are older, and it's like, God, whenever you're ready for that partner to come into my life, I'm ready. I would literally always hear these words. And we know, like, God doesn't like literally speak. It's not like a literal voice, but I would always, in my heart, like, write the book. And so it's just like, now it's out. And I think this is just one of those steps that needed to be done so that, I'm ready to meet, my partner and whatnot. But other than that, um, kids and I have an amazing relationship today. We have a closeness that's like no other, and they're able to talk to me about anything and everything. And there's little shame there, you know. And it's like I watch my daughter just go through life, and I'm like, gosh, she has so much just self-esteem. She values herself. Just remarkable for me to watch. It's not based on her self-value, is not based on what other people think of her, because she's not the popular girl. She's not the, whatever. She's just a girl who knows exactly what she wants and who she is. And that's beautiful to see. My son, he's just not afraid to show his feelings. So we'll see where that gets him. They're great kids. I'm so grateful for them. And you know what? Even today, I have a decent relationship with my ex-husband. We've co-parent quite well together. He's remarried. He remarried very quickly, and parent quite well. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for her. I think she's done a really good job helping raise the kids, and full to this whole journey. We'll see what's next, right?
Thank you so much.
You.
And I have been sitting here making notes because that's what I do, because I have one of those 56-year-old brains that sometimes goes, wait a minute, what did she say? So I write little notes. And I think, for one, when you were talking about your story and your mom, especially, I think our moms, and I'm giving them credit. I bet your mom was born in the 40. My mom, yeah, my
41.
mom was born in 46. And, I don't think that they had any ideas of what, anything. My mom had me at 22, but you mentioned her taking that mommy's little helper, and the Rolling Stones song, and it's really true that so many people, if it weren't diet pills, I mean, it
Oh,
was just so many things that our parents took and our mothers took just to be, but nobody talked about it. Nobody talked
we
about
spoke about it. Yeah.
it. No.
See it today in our mommy wine culture, but now everybody talks about it and it's glorified, which is a little bit, disheartening for me. Again, I don't want to judge it because I think it's perfectly fine if you don't have a problem. For women like me, I would have been like, yeah, thinking during the day because of my kids, you know, thinking to numb something and to something there. But yes, you're exactly right. Nobody talked about it.
No, and it's kind of interesting as you brought up the kids. My kids are a little bit older, right? They're all out of undergrad. I mean, I have two in, one in law school and whatever. My son's getting his PhD. But when they were in college, they said, Mom, I mean, I remember my oldest, and he joined a fraternity, and he was like, Mom, the moms are drinking with us, like partying with us. And moms look so good these days, right? They don't even know if it's a mom or the kid. So they would tie a yellow balloon on the moms, so they knew that it was a mom. And
Hilarious.
he'd say, Mom, why are they like, the last thing I would ever want to do, Mom, is party. I mean, I got sober when he was 10. So he was like, the last thing I can imagine drinking.
I know, but they sure do. It's so funny.
It's so interesting. And I don't judge it as much as I say, oh my gosh, you guys, you've got to think about it as like, kids need somebody who's there. I remember one of my son's fraternity parties, we were there for homecoming or whatever it was. And one of the kids came up to my son and said, "You're so lucky your parents don't drink. You're so lucky," because his dad, we woke up the next day, it was raining, and the dad was sitting still outside in the chair that he had been in. He left, and now it's raining on him, and he's still asleep.
Yeah. 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 And that would have been me. You know what I
Yeah, me too. Me too.
and yeah. And so that is what I'm saying is exactly like, I'm all about shame reduction, but there's a fine line between shame reduction and like glorifying and romanticizing something that, how about we let the kids be kids? We've already lived our life as frat boys, and I mean, I was there, in those houses and stuff. Live that life. I'm going to let my kids do that if they want, if they choose or whatever. But it's kind of, I get like it's a little sad for me to see that stuff.
But it's
Patient is always whatever. It's nothing, it's about, it's the teetotalers.
exact, and I think it's so interesting, at least, and I'm a couple years shy of your sobriety date, but I got sober in 2006. But what I think is so interesting is now this sober curious movement is like taking the world by storm. It's crazy.
Hmm. I love it.
It's amazing.
I
I
d
love
I
it.
love it so very much because it's like if I had only had like maybe, I remember like being 19 and really just doing like a deep dive into the Bible at the time. like I was searching for something. I mean, I didn't have, that's about all I did was read the Bible, but like, and that just wasn't enough because I was in full blown addiction at the time. But like, I think if there was a movement like that or something, like I could have, I just wanted to latch on to some kind of belonging. And I do think kids need belonging. Um, that's one thing I have schooled my kids on a lot as gotten older, like, because they don't want to drink, neither one of them, because I've told them not to or anything. They just like, Mom, no, we don't want to, we don't want to like roll the dice on being like you or dad. Even grow up with us do like they've just heard stories and now they have a book to read about it. But like, no way, we don't want to drink, we don't want to do drugs. And I'm like, okay, but just understand that you may not get it invited to parties. I mean, they've already experienced this in high school. Like, you're not going to get invited to parties and things that like a lot of your friends and popular kids and stuff will be getting invited to. So it's just something for you to be understand, and be comfortable with that piece and not think that you're not being invited because you're not fun or you're being left out. It's simply because they don't, they probably don't want somebody there who's not drinking and acting like that. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's a whole lot of teaching moments for these kids during these years. Lot more than when they were young.
Oh my gosh, and I think it's also if you and then you intermingle, we talked about on the phone earlier, is the social media, which then takes it and it's like, how are these little brains that have no idea? And it also affects the moms, which people don't talk about that much because when you see a picture, let's say on Facebook, you're in bed or whatever, looking through Facebook, and you see all these moms from school are together at this party and you didn't get invited and you're like, what happened? And I know people like you, Kim, that have said to me, what did I do? Why am I not included in this? And it's the bullying has now gone from when we were growing up, nobody knew really, like if anybody had a party, because if you weren't invited, it was like big deal. It already happened. I already did whatever happened this weekend. It doesn't matter. There's no photos anyway. No one would ever.
No photos.
Nobody was pulling out their Polaroids when we were in high school going, let's take some photos of everybody doing whatever they're doing. Let me sit there with a selfie. Nobody would ever even imagine doing
Yeah,
that in
thank
the
God
80s.
too. But yeah,
I know.
exactly.
Today, as a therapist, it's so interesting because it's affect like all this stuff is so much noise that is no wonder people in your industry are so busy because there are so many people getting things thrown at them all day long and it's your kids are going through things. And then we just talked about fraternities, but you talk about sororities. And in the South, I mean, if your daughter's not getting into the one that she didn't get a call back or whatever it's called, and I know a mom that had to fly, just dropped off her daughter at school at one of the big, Big Ten schools, and the daughter said, "Mom, you have to come back. I'm getting my rush letter, or finding out if I got in or not." And the daughter was so worried. And it's so interesting, like all this feelings we have, and it's just a lot. And no wonder people drink, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. And I mean, there people drink. And if we talk about like that, haven't worked on that emotional stuff, all have to work on. It's not just people who are in recovery from alcoholism. It's us have to work on emotional development and emotional maturity. And if we haven't gotten the opportunity or if we have not worked on that in the past, present itself at some point along the road. And I do see that, with the parents' lives now. And maybe they're like experiencing it almost simultaneously as their kids. Like, daughter getting rejected from a sorority, I'm feeling the rejection. That's a problem if mom is feeling the rejection just as severely as the daughter. You know what I mean? Like that is an emotional problem that mom really needs to look at. And again, not in a judgmental way. It's literally like, what is missing inside of you that was so huge, you know? Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I hurt when my kid hurts. And I don't think that's what we're talking about here, though. We're not talking about
No, no.
hurting that your child is hurting. I'm talking about the feeling of rejection that you get because your kid was reject. You know, that is something that parents need to work on, because that means that we're now living own children.
Well, we live vicariously, but the thing that just pinged into my head was the word we used earlier, which is shame. Because you feel like it's me. I didn't do something right. I didn't dress
Mhm.
Billy in the right outfits. I didn't put Susie in the right clothes. I didn't buy her the Nike shoes because I couldn't afford them or whatever it is. No, I think it's so much puts today is on material instead of the stuff, which is like you also even mentioned, which is like you keep pulling back the onions as you get older. I think as human, especially as we feel these feelings, it's like we've got, what is that? All right, I got to go deeper.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh, I felt that way today when you and I were talking and you were like, "Oh, where's your daughter going to school?" And then I felt that in my heart, like I had to preface that, Elizabeth, by saying, "Well, now I didn't raise my kids super academic. Why did I have to say that?" You know what I mean? Like, why couldn't I just be comfortable saying, where she is thinking about going? Needed to preface that so that you lowered your standards here. You lowered your, you know what I mean? But it's just like, but that's my own stuff. That's nothing to do with my
Of
daughter.
course.
That is my own stuff. And quite frankly, it is the crap that society is putting on us. Like, darn, I was happy that my kids had it above a 3.0 GPA,
Yeah.
but like, that is not even near enough anywhere like big time or whatever now. And it's just like, also wanted them to be kind of happy in school and not feel pressure. You know what I mean? Like if they're naturally smart, like that's one thing, and like really love to study. But I just never was that mom who was going to kill them if they didn't get this done. I frankly, I didn't have the time or the energy to spend that way.
You're not a tiger mom.
Also, you got to know I was building my own career at the time and stuff. So it's like I just didn't have the time or the energy to even care at now that it's push, they call it go or it's time to go to college. I'm like, I should have. But then at the same time, darn it, I don't want her to go to college and have to sweat bullets for 4 years trying to keep her grades up. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like we all have our path.
Well, do you know what
And
I
get a
think?
4-year degree and it'll be okay.
Well, you know what I think is so interesting too is that so many people, and because of I feel like especially this past year, all these curtains have been pulled away. Like we're like, oh, there's Oz again. There's Oz again. Like we've been thinking there's this great, powerful Oz. And then Toto goes and goes, oh, it's just an old dude. Okay. So that's what we're finding all over the place. Old dudes that we thought, oh, we have to do this. We have to do that. And in reality, it is truly like you can go out and become a plumber or an electrician. If you are handy, like, why would you waste your money going and spending it to go to college? Or if you're going to go into sales, do you really need a college degree? Not so much. But and today, that's finally, and you coming across and saying that, and I appreciate that so much that you came and said that because I know so many people are like, my kid's going to Penn, Wharton, and they're going to Harvard, or they're going to Princeton or University of Florida. And I was like, well, my kids are going to Elon and, College of Charleston. It is perfect.
Hey, and I mean, not saying, that is fantastic that these kids have worked that hard and all that. I mean, I don't want to take away from all of that stuff, but what I'm saying is for me or for the average, I'm just like, nothing wrong. And that does not gauge the success rate. I was a 26-year-old junkie who had no college degree. Now I have 2 degrees, a license, another certification that cost a crazy amount of money and time. Thriving private practice, just wrote a book. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like the sky's the limit if you take the roof off, you know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
if we all look at it as like, oh, you have to go to this school and do this, then but I mean, there are therapists out there who went to Duke University and Princeton and things and probably make the same amount of money as as a chick who graduated from FAU. You know what I mean? But it's so much about networking. It's so much more about like making the most out of your profession and like gaining more and like doing more. If you love what you do, you're going to keep on growing in your profession, and there is nothing that's going to stop God from doing what he's doing. You're fixing a junkie. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
even if you're 35 and just getting your master's. I mean,
Or even 45 or 50,
45,
right?
50. I mean, just, I love those memes that says like Morgan Freeman didn't get his first role in a movie until he was 43 or something. I mean, it kind of gives a lot of stats on some of the people who are successful, like Henry Ford as well. I don't know, but I don't want to quote something I don't know, but it is just to take away that heaviness off of, and my kids are the only two that I have control over. Did want to take that heaviness off of them of like, you know what you're supposed to do, you're going to do it anyway. I mean, you're just the person that's walking the path, but it's going to happen. Keep walking.
I love that. And I think that, I just keep thinking about like moms and the competitiveness, and you're going here and you're going there. And I think that if we all came more like together and go, oh, that's cool, whatever you do, instead of like, "Oh, you're cool. Like, I love that you were saying so much the popular crowd, the popular crowd. I told my kids when they were growing up, I'm like, do not be popular. You're not allowed to be popular because you know what happens to the popular guy. Do not do that. And
Downhill. Yes.
it's all downhill. It's like you peak in high school. And I think that moms coming together at all different levels and just being able to put down which you did, your guard, which was like here on this
Mhm.
podcast, and said, you know what, this is the truth of it. My daughter's going to someplace that you may have heard of and you may not have heard of. And it doesn't really matter, but that's where she's going, or she's staying home, or she's doing this. It doesn't really matter. And just saying, "Oh, that's cool," instead of being like maybe putting somebody, I don't know, thinking that they're less than or we're better than. We're all just trying to get through this thing we called life without drowning.
Every single one of us. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Sure, I know. And that's what I really hope the book does as well, is that like I hope it disarms a lot of people on their own journey. Like when I disarm myself, it gives others permission to disarm themselves and just, hey, we are who we are here, and all having a human experience right now.
So true. So my last question is, and you can give me a big answer or a short answer, you get to decide.
Sure.
Why do you think God wanted you to write your book?
Great question. First, I would have said, and my first probably thing that popped into my head would be just as simple as to help other women. What I'm hoping it's published and out, hoping what it does for me personally, I hope that it to heal some of the shame for my mother. I know that she and I are now in therapy together because this has been tough for her. Um, in me and my little family, I'm hoping that it kind of helps to heal some of the shame patterns. Us. I hope it helps all the women in the whole wide world. um, I think God had me write that book for. I don't know now. I don't know. All I do know is I know for a fact he had me write it. Like, without a doubt, had me write that book. And like I've said, I've heard things from him. I've felt things from him. I would go to church and be, you know, like, I don't want to write this book, and it would be, but you're going to write a book. And it's just like, oh gosh. So all I know is he had me write it. Just hope it's to help people. I really do. And I know that's a generic as crap answer. Just, I wrote it. I'm disarming myself to give you permission to disarm yourself,
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that for me, just hearing you describe it, I think that like when you talked about, healing your family, if it just heals you and your mom, I mean, I never had that opportunity. My mom passed away, during COVID, not of COVID, but, I think that family healing,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
show it to your son and your daughter, and it just, I mean, if that's all it does, babe, you've got the best cake in the whole world with icing and cherries and the most beautiful flowers, because that, my friend, is like what we all, I think, thrive for.
Beautiful, Elizabeth. Thank you for that.
It's going to be amazing. So you guys, if you're out there and you want to get the book, I Do It For Her, you're going to find the link right there in the description. You don't even have to do anything. You're just going to click it and it's going to take you to Amazon. Is it on Amazon?
Yep, it's
Yeah.
on Amazon.
That's what I thought. So it's on Amazon. And if you know somebody out there, a loved one, yourself, a relative, Christmas is right around the corner, and so is Hanukkah for that matter. So please get this for somebody in your family that you think may benefit from it, because I can tell you from just taking the little glances that I did, it's a beautiful book. And there's tools in there. There's everything, you guys. It's education tools. I love the pictures that are drawn. I love your family shots that you've thrown in there. It's made it really, really personal. And I just can't thank you enough for coming on today. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Kim.
it's an interesting book. So yeah, I do. I urge anyone listening to. It's got little exercises in there, but I just hope it helps. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for giving me this opportunity to be on here with you. And I'm just awe of you too. I think you're amazing.
Oh my gosh, thank you so
I
much.
can't believe you've lived this close to me for so long, and like I've never met.
Oh, we're meeting this week. I'm getting my hair done in Palm Beach Gardens. I'm coming up there to see you.
Say less. Okay,
Oh,
perfect.
all right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, everybody, take care, be safe. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas to all, and we'll be back. I'll see you guys again on Wednesday. Take care. Bye, Kim. Thanks for listening to Conversations with Busy. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, if you could subscribe, that would mean the world to me. And follow me on all social media. And you can also get my newsletter every Friday morning into your inbox. Just go to elizabethchance.com and subscribe. Take care.